Superman 64 is a cumbersome and curious experience. Everything about it is almost optimally unpleasant, irrational, and sluggish. Analyzing it as a traditional game is an enormous task because of its alien nature. It doesn't feature a particular genre, but is instead an action-adventure gumbo of tedious checkpoint races, brutally broken beat-em-up combat, and survival horror-style puzzles. It is one of the most unique games you could ever play, but you'd never feel compelled to. It is impressively repulsive. From the first moment, the mechanics and design are furiously baffling. Recognizable cartoon characters get sucked into some kind of void while you're assaulted by Lex Luthor's bassy voice, and then you immediately spend the next several minutes flying through hoops in a dead empty city. There's no connective tissue here, no emotional hook, no call to action, just confusion. If you read the additional lore in the options menu, character bios, and accompanying comic book, it makes a little more sense, but there's always this thick layer of separation between your in-game behaviors and narrative goals. Lex Luthor trapped your friends in VR, so you fly through hoops a lot, and solve seemingly random timed objectives. There's no tension or flow, and it feels like pure stream of consciousness nonsense. When you pass through the requisite amount of rings, you finally reach a proper level, usually being some immensely labyrinthine factory or warehouse. In said levels, you wander corridors, catwalks, and combat arenas stuffed with criminally moronic enemies and confounding level design. Event triggers are tucked away in obscure bits of scenery, Superman is inexplicably hurt by plain old projectiles, and you'll often find yourself, your enemies, or all possible parties wedged into a wall or through the floor. Everything about the moment-to-moment gameplay is nonsensical. Superman's superpowered punches can send enemies flying, but sending them flying doesn't kill or stun them, so they just resume firing on you from an advantageous distance. Punching them literally gives them a range advantage, and practically every puzzle involves scraping your gargantuan hitbox against every surface, trying to interact with computer consoles that may or may not be decorative. Then there are the boss battles. They're laughable bobblehead slap fights with no strategy to speak of. When reviewing a game, I usually try to stay focused on its core identity. I ask, what is this? Is it what it wants to be, and is it good for people? But I struggle to answer any of those here. The gameplay and story are a shapeless blob, sucking in mechanics and tropes from other media, reformulating them into a twisted nightmare. It's not a good adaptation of its source material, it misunderstands every element of game design at its disposal, and it lacks any artistic character. Despite the absurdly awkward and idiosyncratic scenarios this game presents, none of it is passionate, playful, or purposeful. When I freeze Lois to make her bulletproof or blow out tornadoes from the inside or carry Darkseid's unconscious body through a parking garage, it somehow feels corporate and hollow. On paper, this is the silliest stuff anyone could ask for, but there's no self-awareness or spark of joy, only obligation. If there's one positive aspect to Superman 64, it's that it technically functions. Despite the literally countless bugs and occasional freezes, it can be beaten as intended. For all of its mythology, it is still a video game, and it's one of the most incredible tests of endurance. I use it as an exercise in meditation, personally, because it requires so much profound patience. But maybe don't play it if you're looking for, like, a good video game.